What's up, guys? Rick here with your DFS preview for this week's WGC match play. This is my favorite event of the year. It is the one where strategy matters the most. It's probably going to be the longest show of the year, so strap in and get ready. There are going to be a large percentage of players who build lineups incorrectly, and the edge is going to be bigger than ever. So what I ask for you, hit the like button for me. It goes a long way, and quite honestly, I think this might be the most valuable video that I put out each and every year. So I'm absolutely stoked for it. And there's a lot to get through. Real quick, let's look back at last week's Honda Classic. Matt Jones wins, which is always a little bit wonky when the optimal lineup was like $45,000, $46,000, but I did still see a lot of great core cascading lineups. A lot of those little circles in the green when your core hits. I saw a lot of those in the Slack channel, and then also Eric Haber, who you might better know as Sheets, actually sent me a big score of his. He won $23,000, including a third place finish in the $555 contest on DraftKings. Congratulations, Eric. I've gone on with him and Bobby. He's just, he's a great advocate for our industry and what we're trying to do. So always good to see some good guys take home some cash as well. I also have winners for subscriptions to RickRunGood.com. Dan the Man and Jay Roberts, they are going to get a month subscription to RickRunGood.com. I've already reached out. I'll get you set up. For this week, a lot of things going on. This event starts on Wednesday, which means the content schedule is going to be a little bit different. You're getting the DFS preview right now on Monday. You're going to get a betting and one and done preview on Tuesday. That's normal. And then the live chat this week is going to be 3 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesday. Okay, so a day early for the match play live chat. Don't forget that. There still will be the Jock Market Power Hour on Wednesday night at 8:15 p.m. Eastern time, because that's going to be for Corrales Punta Cana. There is an alternate event running to the WGC this week as well. Additionally, I'm going to give away subscriptions to RickRunGood.com via the bracket challenge. So you can go to PGAtour.com. You can fill out a bracket. I've already created a private group that you can enter. The link will be in the description, and a link to the bracket and some of the stuff that you're going to see in this video will also be in the description as well. I've compiled a lot of great information for everybody. The password in all caps is RRG. That's right. I'll put it here at the bottom. RRG. That's the password that gets you in. Here's what I'll do. If you win the bracket challenge, I'll give you a year subscription to RickRunGood.com. If you finish second, I'll give you 6 months. Finishes third through eighth, I'll give you a month subscription. There you go. I'll give out a bunch of subscriptions. You finish in the top 8, you get something. I have no idea how many people to expect. Maybe if we get a lot more, a couple hundred or whatever, I'll add some more. But the link is in the description. Good luck with that. The other link in the description is the full match play history since 2015 for every player, whether they're in this field or not. It is a tool that I've whipped up and put on RickRunGood.com for free. Figure I'm not going to charge you for it. There's plenty of great stuff behind the paywall. We'll talk about how you're going to use that later. But if you want to check out the match play results since this format has changed, you can do that. The link is in the description. Have fun. The format is important this week. I'll talk more about it here in a second, but if you want to watch the tournament preview, that's already been posted. That dropped on Sunday on the Rick Run Good YouTube channel. That'll talk through how this is going to work over the next 5 days instead of 4 days. But I think that's it for announcements. Let me pull up the bracket, and we will jump into the big mistake that everybody is going to make and how you're going to avoid it. All right, so here's the bracket. I'm hoping that you guys can all see this pretty well. This just dropped on Monday morning. And the way that this works, and they started doing this since 2015, is they took the top 16 players in the field and they placed them each in their own group. And then they drew from 3 different pools of players to fill out the rest of these groups. And for the first 3 days, every single golfer is going to play one another. So for example, let's look at group 1. Group 1 is Dustin Johnson, Kevin Na, Robert McIntyre. I spelled his name wrong. There we go. And Adam Long. That means on day 1, Dustin Johnson is going to play Adam Long. and then he'll play Kevin Na, and then he'll play Robert McIntyre. And each match is worth 1 point. If you win it, you get the full point. If you have it, you get half a point. At the end of the first 3 rounds, whoever has the most points is going to move on to the Sweet 16. Okay. If there is a tie, they will go to a sudden death tiebreaker on, what would that be, Friday afternoon to break the tie to see who's going to win the group. Getting out of the group is essential, right? I mean, not only are you playing well, but it gives you an opportunity to move on. And a lot of the times, the winner or the top seed in the group does not make it out of the group. Okay. Only 5 of the 16 top seeds in 2019, which is the last year we played this, made it out of the group. There's going to be chaos. Keep that in mind. Only 5 of 16 in 2019 made it out. The other big thing for this week, the DraftKings scoring system is different. It is not birdies, bogeys, anything like that. It is about how many holes you win, lose, and have, and then how many matches you win. So if you've never seen match play before, it is literally one golfer against another. If I make a 3 and you make a 4, I win that hole. If we both make a 4, nothing happens. We move on. You can concede holes. So like if you hit 2 out of bounds and you're like, let's not waste any more time, I concede, this hole is yours. No problem. If you make an 8 on a hole and I make a 3, you only lose 1 hole. So disaster holes don't really matter. And it's a completely different strategy game. So let me pull up the DraftKings scoring here. So if you win a hole, you get 3 points. If you have a hole, you get 0.75. And if you lose a hole, you get minus 0.75. And for every hole you don't play, you get 1.6 points. What does that mean, Rick? Well, if you are up 5 holes with 4 to go, they don't continue playing. Like the golfers on the course say, okay, well, it's over. I can't come back and beat you. I can't come back and tie. It's over. For those 4 holes that were not played, they will be awarded to the winning golfer. They do not get awarded to the losing golfer. So you don't get credit for getting blown out. Right? You don't get those holes not played bonuses for getting smoked. So ideally, you not only want to have your golfers win the match, you want them to win it in a big way. You want them to run up the score. Additionally, you'll get a bonus for streak of 3 consecutive holes won in a match, or if you did not lose a hole. So that's essentially like saying birdie streak on a normal week or a bogey-free round, so to speak. They're just trying to figure out different ways to do this. If you win the match, you get 5 points. If you have the match, you finish, or you get 2 points for that. The big thing, the huge gaping thing that everyone is going to screw up this week is how to build lineups. And the last time we had this, 2019, about 35% of lineups were built suboptimally, meaning they were pretty much drawing dead to the big prize. Obviously, you can still make money. You can still have a good lineup, but you need to be optimal about building your lineups. And we're going to talk a lot about this here. So think about how this bracket's going to work. Guys from Group 1, whoever wins Group 1 is going to play Group 16. Whoever wins Group 9 is going to play the winner of Group 8. And they're going to go on and on and on. So obviously, you don't want to roster Dustin Johnson and Kevin Na on the same team. They are in the same group. Not only are they going to play one another, where in theory, one of them is going to win and one of them is going to lose, or at best, they're going to have it. Only one of these guys can move on. So you are already setting yourself up for failure by playing 2 golfers from the same group. Now, a lot of people don't do that, but think about it. If you're not looking at the bracket and you're just in DraftKings or you're on your phone and you're just looking at the salaries, you say, oh, I like Dustin Johnson, I like Kevin Na. You're not even thinking about what group or what placement they are in. So most people aren't going to do group, 2 guys from the same group, but what they do constantly is they will have 2 guys from, say, one guy from Group 1 and one guy from Group 16, where if those guys advance, they're going to play each other immediately. It's bonkers. You want to make sure that your golfers, when they finally do meet, because if your 6 golfers continue to advance on, they will eventually meet. You want them to meet as late as humanly possible, ideally in the Elite 8. That's where they should be meeting. So if you have Dustin Johnson in a lineup, you should never have anybody else from Group 1 or Group 16 in that lineup, because you are capping yourself on points. So, for example, if I wanted to roster Dustin Johnson, So I actually look at these in quadrants, actually, right? So a quadrant would be, this group right here. So each pod, it's 4 pods. So the upper left-hand quadrant would be group 1, group 16, group 9, and group 8. You should have one golfer in every, from your lineups, you should have one golfer from that quad, one golfer from the bottom left quad, one golfer from the upper right quad, and one golfer from the lower right quad. In every single lineup, you should have one of each of those. That ensures that you at least have 4 guys that, in theory, could make it to the final 4 all at the same time. So now you have to fill out 2 other roster spots. So whatever player that you've taken from the quadrant, you want to take from another group. That doesn't make sense. You want to take from 2 groups away. So if you have Justin Thomas as your group 2, or as your upper right-hand quadrant, your other guy from that quadrant needs to be from group 10 or 7. So they're going to meet in the Elite 8, but you at least are able to have them advance as far as possible. What you also don't want to do is you don't want to get 4 guys on the same side of the bracket. So for example, if your lineup is, and you probably can't do this, but let's say your lineup is Justin Thomas, Corey Connors, Cantlay, that wouldn't be right. Yeah, Cantlay and Harris English. Like, these guys are just going to run into one another. You can't have 4 guys on the same side. You need 3 on the left side, 3 on the right, with your third guy coming from an opposite group. Okay, so ways to do this. Well, I've built 300 lineups by hand. It's difficult and challenging. I will show you the RickRunGood lineup optimizer that's going to make your life a lot easier for this, because you're going to be able to write rules to separate all these guys out and to make sure that you are building these absolutely correctly. Having any number of lineups that are built optimally, that alone is going to give you a positive expected value this week. That alone. So build lineups optimally. Don't build them suboptimally. Don't put guys in the same groups or the same quads, or from 4 or 5 from the same side. That would be lunacy. So building the structure of your lineups is way more important than actually who is in your lineups, believe it or not, especially because of how volatile this tournament has been. Just getting optimally built lineups is the number one priority. The other thing you might want to consider, or you should consider, is the path. The path to victory. Who would guys face? First of all, if you get out of your group, that's great. Who's got a weak group? Who's got a strong group? And then who has the path? So I think, and we'll talk more about specific players in a second, but just as an example, the Jon Rahm path is sublime. It's probably the best path to the Final Four. Now, whether he gets, he's still an underdog to get there, right? We've seen chaos over the years, but Rahm's group of Ryan Palmer, Shane Lowry, Sebastian Munoz is not only a friendly group, he's buddies with Ryan Palmer, but he is the clear-cut favorite in this group. The opposite group of that, so if Jon Rahm advances out of the Sweet 16, he gets to face the winner of Group 14. Well, Group 14 is led by Daniel Berger, who withdrew last week and has been dealing with a rib injury. That doesn't elicit a whole lot of confidence. Harris English, who's been on a really poor stretch. And then the 2 lower seeds, or higher seeds, I don't know how you say that, the worst seeds, Brendan Todd and Eric Van Rooyen. So if Jon Rahm gets out of this group, he gets to play a pretty weak Group 14. Then if he advances to the Elite 8, who would he play? Well, by that chance, it would be Rory, who I actually, we'll talk about this week, I kind of like a little bit, maybe Rory's out of that group, or Cam Smith, or Lonto, or Ian Poulter, like whoever comes out of Group 11. And then Group 6 has Xander in it, which Xander's awesome and would be a challenge for Jon Rahm, but Xander might not make it out of Group 6. That's got Scotty Scheffler, Jason Day, and Andy Sullivan in it. That's a tough group. So Jon Rahm's path to the Final Four is wide open. It's still going to be difficult for him to get there, but these are the things you have to start thinking about. You look at Justin Thomas's path. Justin Thomas is probably in the group of death. Louis Oosthuizen, Kevin Kisner, Matt Kuchar, I'll show you this a little bit later, have been absolutely dominant at this event. If he gets out of that group, who would he have to play? Group 15's weird, right? It's got Matthew Fitzpatrick. It's got Matthew Wolff. I don't know what to expect from Wolff. It has Connors, and it has Jordan Spieth. What if Jordan Spieth gets hot? Like, does JT have to play Spieth in round 2, and then he'd have to play the winner of maybe Cantlay's group or Reed's, like Justin Thomas's path is just much more difficult to get to the Final Four than John Rahm's is. Now they both could get there, or neither of them could get there, but it's really, you gotta look at the path to victory here, and how I'm starting to determine the strength and difficulty of these paths is with this new tool that I dropped on RickRunGood.com. So you can access it from the cheat sheet, or you can access it under PGA Tools. Hover over cheat sheet and go to match play history. This is free. It is not behind the paywall. I figured let's just have fun and do it. And this is since 2015 when this format changed all of the records, all of the scores, all of the matches. So when I look at this, and I've just got it sorted over here on the right-hand side, the total number of points that these guys have scored since 2015, well, that Justin Thomas group that I'm referring to has Louis Oosthuizen in it, who is 17-7, the most points scored by any golfer, and he's done it without a victory. So it means that he's just constantly in contention. And if you click his name, you can see he's finished 5th, 2nd, failed to get out of his group, finished 9th, and finished 5th. So he's been making a deep run in all of these. So that's part one of JT's group. Part two is Kevin Kisner, who has the 3rd most points of anybody in this field since 2015, and Matt Kuchar, who has the 6th most. So JT is just absolutely in a group of death. So this is what I would be going through and looking at. This is just the match play only. You could, of course, go look up the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup stuff. I kept it out. It's different. They do have the Sunday singles where it's just mano-y-mano, but a lot of the times it's partners, it's alternate shot, it's best ball. Like I just didn't think it was as relevant to this setup right here. So I just kept the WGC match play results since the tournament has been played in this format. So this is where you can quickly go and see all of the different matchups. Maybe I'll add a button for group number up here so you can click into the groups, but this is a really good way to kind of see how difficult some of these pods might actually be. All right, so here it is, the lineup building process. This is the most critical part. I've built these by hand, 300 of them. It took me all night long. You're delirious by the end. So if you have access to something like this, like a lineup optimizer, I highly suggest you use it. And this is mine at RickRunGood.com that's going to help you with this. And if you've seen this optimizer before, you know a couple of things. It is certainly not the most robust optimizer that there is out there on the face of the earth. That's by design. But also by design, it is very, very flexible. You can project off of any metric that you want. Projected points, which I already have loaded in, strokes gained, win equity, whatever you want. Plug in anything you want, you can project off of that metric. That's what I like. It is incredibly flexible, and it has player rules that were specifically added for this tournament. The ability to write rules. And if you've never seen this tutorial or this optimizer before, I'll link a tutorial in the description so you can see it kind of in action. But let me walk you through what the idea is. So we're going to write a bunch of rules. We're going to write like 8 rules or 10 rules. And they're basically going to be groups of 8 golfers. And we're going to say at most, we only want one of these 8 golfers. And then we're going to write another rule that says only have 3 from each side. So that basically ensures that we are not going to get golfers in the same group or the adjacent group, and we are not going to get 4, 5, or 6 golfers from the same side of this bracket. So everything that gets pumped out, in theory, then will be optimally built. So let me show you how we're going to do this. It's going to take me a couple of minutes. You can certainly fast forward if you want. I think it's worth a couple of minutes if you just want to see what's going on, just so you can wrap your head logistically around what's happening here. So for the 8 rules, these are 2 groups at a time. So I'm going to go into player groups, and I'm going to just start typing in these names. So I'm going to start at the top left. Dustin Johnson, Kevin Na, Robert McIntyre, Adam Long, Sung Jae, Victor Perez, Leishman. You got to make sure you get these right. You don't want to mess these up. Russell Henley. Okay. So of this first group, we want at most one of them. That ensures we never get 2 guys from the same group, 2 guys from a group and its adjacent group. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2, same thing. We're just going to continue to move down. Bryson, Tommy, Siwoo. Again, don't click the wrong name. That would be ugly if you did. Rosner, Finau, Kokrak, Zalatoris, and Dylan Fratelli. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 golfers, and at most one of them. And we're going to add that rule. So we're going to do this 6 more times. So you can certainly fast forward, or you can stay with me here. We're just going to continue to go. Webb Simpson, Paul Casey, and again, when I start thinking about what do you want to optimize off of, the good news is you can really optimize off anything. I'm certainly going to do projected points, although the format being different, I wouldn't lean so much on projected points. You could also do win equity. So when the odds for winning the groups come out, I'll probably turn that into implied win equity to get out of your group, and maybe I'll optimize on that, or I'll optimize on strokes gained. If you go to the cheat sheet on RickRunGood.com, there's an optimizer download where you can download the strokes gained metrics. So that's good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. At most one of these guys. We're going to add this. So that's 3 of them. So we've done Dustin Johnson, we've done Bryson, we've done Webb. So we have to do Hovland's group. Hovland answer. Burned, feeling the burned. Streel, who's kind of sneaky. Colin. Horschel. Homa. And Poston. And again, at most one of these guys. It's going to take you a couple minutes to build it out the first time, but then you should be ready to rock and roll. So I've done the left side of the bracket. Let's do the right side of the bracket. Thomas, Louis, King Louis, Kiz, and Kuchar. Have to go, then it's next with Fitzpatrick, Wolf, Corey, and Spieth. That is our 5th. And again, at most 1. Add that. Next up is Cantlay. And after I do this first set, I'll show you what it's doing here. And then we're going to add 2 more rules to really fix this up and make sure that we are getting the optimal builds. But I'll show you what's happening here. So Brian Harmon, and then it is Reed, Neiman. Almost clicked Berger. That would have been bad. Bez and Bubba. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm going quickly. You should go slower and make sure that you have all the players in, or else you're going to get an error message later. So that was Cantlay's group. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 2 more. So this should be Schauffele, Scheffler. That's tough to say back to back. Day, Sullivan, Rory. I mean, imagine doing this by hand. Actually, I don't have to imagine doing this by hand. I've done this by hand. It was absolutely brutal. Poulter. All right, and we've got 1 more, so that's at most 1. And then we've got 1 more, which is Berger, English, Todd, Eric Van Rooyen, Ryan Palmer. That's actually pretty interesting. Rahm Palmer, Lowry, and Seb Munoz. So at most 1 of these. So now I have 8 rules of 8 players apiece to get to 64, right? I have 2 more rules to write, but let me show you what this is doing now. And when I go to do my build, so I'll do a new build. Let's just do 4 lineups just so we can see and call this test 1. And if I've done and you can change the number of uniques, you can change your max player exposure, your salaries, your total owned, your randomness, all that stuff. But just for our purposes, let me just generate 4 and see if this worked. All right, so here we go. So if this is done right, I don't have anybody in the same group or the adjacent group. So let me confirm that. So the first lineup is Finau, Hatton, Smith. So that would be looking at the bracket here. It would be Finau, Hatton, Smith is over here. Smith, Hideki, Louis, and Homa. So if you can see the names that I've bolded, this has done exactly what we have asked it to. We have said, do not put them in the same group or an adjacent group, which they have not. All of these rules were accurate. Now, this would in theory be a lineup that I could roll out because it has Cameron Smith right here. He's not going to meet anybody else in this matchup until the final 4. Hideki and Louis would eventually meet in the in the Elite Eight. That's fine. That's the first time for them to meet. Then on the opposite side, you have the same thing. Finau and Homa wouldn't meet until the Elite Eight, and then Hatton has a clear path to the Final Four before he meets anybody else. So this is a correctly built, optimally built lineup. Now, the other thing that we need to add, just as another precaution, is we only want at most 3 from each side. I guess there's probably not a chance. I guess there was a chance it could have picked one of these guys down here. So it could have picked from group 2, 10, 6, and 14 and followed the current rules, but it would still be a suboptimal lineup. So we have to write 2 more rules, and they're going to be a bit longer because we're going to say of all these 32 golfers, only at most 3, and of these at most 3. So you can certainly fast forward. It's going to take me about 2 minutes or so, maybe 3 minutes. But we've got to write these. And let me just, we have to get it right. We just have to get it right. So I'm just going to unbold these so that I don't forget later. Okay. So we're going to go back to our optimizer, and we're going to go back to our players, and let's write 2 more rules. All right. So this one is going to be Dustin, Kevin, Robert. This reminds me of the old days when I used to do like spreadsheet golf during quarantine, and like I would just read off a bunch of names in a spreadsheet all week long, and you guys would tune into the live shows. It was awesome. Victor Perez, Leishman, Henley. Also, I want to remember to do, there's one other rule that I think could be interesting in writing that I want to try out. So I'm going to do Webb, Casey, Hughes, Gooch. This optimizer literally built with this in mind, which gets me all amped up. Hatton, Westwood, Sergio Garcia, Wallace. Okay. Scroll down, make sure I have it here. So I'm just looking on my other screen or just looking elsewhere that I have the bracket right. Obviously, I'm linking the bracket, so you can certainly follow along with that. Rosner, Siwoo Kim, Rosner, Finau. And what's nice is when you start typing in names, you can't do them again. So actually, my list is getting shorter every time I put one in, which makes this a little bit easier. That was Fratelli, so this should be Hovland, Answer, Burned, Streelman, Morikawa, Horschel, Homa, and Poston. All right, so that's halfway done. All right, so now this needs to be at most 3. So we're just adding another rule, at most 3. And then we're going to go to the right side of the bracket, and we're going to do the same thing. So we're almost there. And then I have one more that I think is going to be really interesting in terms of strategy to be different. There's one more rule I want to mess around with that I think is going to be fun. Kuchar, Kisner. And then it's going to be the 2 Matts. So Fitzpatrick and Wolf. It's going to be Corey, Spieth. I'm going to have this bracket memorized here shortly. Cantlay, Hideki, Carlos, Harmon, Reed, Neiman, Bez and Bubba. And then we are going to get just a few more here. Schauffele, Scheffler, Day, Sullivan, Rory, Cam, Lanto, Poulter. A couple more. Berger, English, Todd, Ruin, Rahm, Palmer, Lowry, Munoz. Okay. And again, at most 3. So in theory, these rules have now forced us to generate optimal lineups. Let's just confirm that with our new build. We'll do, again, 4 lineups. I'll call this test 2 so that I know. It's not really a test. I've been testing this. So here we go. So this lineup now is Finau, Hatton, Smith, Hideki, Louis, Homa. Let's just confirm that. Finau, Homa, Hideki, Hatton, Smith, and Louis. Yep. Cool. Yeah. So again, now this is going to generate, this is great. This is going to generate a bunch of really optimal lineups. So I can do this as many as I want, right? Up to 150 at a time. And I can change the metrics and I can change the randomness and I can do all that fun stuff over the course of the next couple of days, which I'm certainly going to be doing. Now, if I'm really feeling frisky, which I think I kind of am, I want to consider one more rule here. And I think this is going to allow me to get a lot of leverage. As I mentioned earlier, only 5 of the 16 top seeds have gotten through last year. That's pretty historic. It's pretty much the same rate every year since we've gone to group play. There are a lot of top seeds that are going to get bounced. What I would also consider is writing a rule around the top seeds and saying at most, I don't know, what would be a good number? 7, 8? I think 8 would be probably a lot. If you want to get really freaky, say only 3 of them get through. So it's going to really generate, it's going to be awesome. So let me just show you what that rule would look like. So we're back in here. It would be Dustin, Webb, Sungjae, Hatton, Bryson, Finau, Hovland, Morikawa, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, those are those 8. And then it would be Justin Thomas, Fitzpatrick, Cantlay, Reed, Xander, Rory, Berger, Rahm. And you can, this is certainly up to you to decide. Let's say I only want at most 7 of these guys getting through, and I'll add that rule. So now I've got my bases covered here, and now I kind of want to run a lot of lineups. So let's do like 100 just to kind of see what the exposure would be, and let's generate these. This might take a second. There's a lot of rules it has to go through, a lot of calculations it has to go through. This might take 30 seconds or a minute. Let's see. All right, here we go. So now I've got 100 lineups generated. Oh yeah. Okay, so it's got my exposure. So Hideki comes up in a lot. So I would obviously load in how often one single player shows up or something like that. But this worked. This built 100 optimal lineups that only allowed, 7 or 8 of the top players to get through. So what you can do is you could literally export this and you could upload this into DraftKings, right? Like it's that simple. This would export to CSV. You would update your lineups that way. So I think this is a fun tool, a killer tool in general, but this week more than any, absolutely critical. So I'm gonna mess around with the rules. I'm gonna mess around with what I want to use to project this over the next couple of days. But this is awesome. So let's talk about some of these players individually. I think a lot of the times in match play, and this kind of hurts my heart, is you can kind of throw out, a lot of the stats. You can lean on good putters. You can lean on different types of things. But let's be real here. Like, who's likely to find success? I think there's a couple of interesting options for this week. Bryson DeChambeau's coming out of Group 5. He's the favorite. I think he absolutely should be. Imagine how devastating it's going to be to play against Bryson as he is bombing it past you on every single hole. You are going to hit your approach shot basically first every single time, which then in match play gives Bryson a lot more information. If you have to hit first and you go in the water, if you hit first and you stuff one close, like whatever you do, Bryson's gonna know. And also the weird thing about Bryson, and again, this is all anecdotal and narrative stuff, he cares. Right? I feel like a lot of match play is caring. Like Bryson cares about this stuff. He's trying to win. He's trying to be the best. Some of these guys are there cashing their paycheck, working on their game, whatever. Bryson's trying to win, which makes him really dangerous in a group of Tommy Fleetwood, Siwoo Kim, Antoine Rosner. And the other thing with Bryson is he's also a good putter. And we talk all the time about match play, like the first ball in. If you get your ball in the cup first, usually because you rolled in a putt, that is such a huge advantage. It puts a lot of pressure on your opponent to make an 8-foot par putt, for example, to halve the hole. If you constantly put yourself in that position, or your opponent in that position, it grinds on them all day long. That's how you win in match play. So he has the combination of everything. The ability to put you in the ringer off the tee, and then also kind of get his ball in the hole first, at least roll in some putts. It's terribly terrifying if you are playing up against Bryson DeChambeau. Some of the other guys that I think are would be tough to play against, like Patrick Cantlay, I think would be really difficult to play against. He is not only slow, he's really good, which I think could be super annoying if you're playing against him. He would have a match with, if he got out of Group 10, with potentially Patrick Reed or Joaquin Niemann or whoever comes out of Group 7, which is a little bit, it's not a great path, but I'm generally okay with it. The other things that I think we have to consider is some of these guys who are trying to get right, specifically Rory McIlroy, I believe is much more appealing in a match play setting than he is in a stroke play setting at the moment, right? He has not won since 2019. You also know what he hasn't done since 2019? He hasn't played a match play event. And the thing about winning a stroke play event is you have to beat 140 or 150 other golfers. You got to be perfect. You got to have your absolute A+ game, no doubt about it. You don't in match play. Right? It's the same of like winning a GPP versus doubling up and winning money in a cash game. You just got to be better than 51%. So you got to be better than the one other guy that you're playing against. And Rory, the disaster hole doesn't really matter, right? If he makes a double, he makes a triple, he loses one hole. It's okay. It's not as devastating as it is in stroke play. I'm worried about his putter. Yes, of course. But I really think a change in format for someone like Rory would be important. Also, Spieth has a pretty not great draw here, right? I mean, and the odds to bet him aren't great, but like he would have to play Group 2, which is Justin Thomas's group second, if he even gets out of his own group. But I imagine playing against Jordan Spieth would be pretty frustrating. If he's spraying it, still making par, still getting back into position, rolling putts in, which he tends to do, that would be absolutely terrifying. Sungjae, I like Sungjae's skill set for this. I hate his path, right? He would have to run into Dustin Johnson, and Dustin Johnson pretty objectively has the easiest path out of his own group. Kevin Na can get sneaky hot with the putter at times, or not sneaky hot with the putter at times. He gets hot with the putter, which is sneaky good in match play. Robert McIntyre, Adam Long are there. Like I would expect Dustin Johnson to get out of this group. So he'd run into Sungjae in the next group, which would be a little bit concerning. But, go and look at this stuff. To go back to Rory McIlroy, Rory's 16-6-2 in this event. He won it in 2015. He had another Final Four finish in 2016. He made it to the Sweet 16, made it out of his group in 2019. It's really interesting what he has been able to do. The other things that I would note is, when you look at the seeding, Kevin Kisner, when he won this, was the 48 seed. When Bubba Watson won this, he was the 35 seed. So we have seen a lot of volatility in hand with that number I mentioned earlier, where only 5 out of 16 golfers are getting through, or last year, 5 of the 16 top seeds got through to the elimination round. I mean, there's just a huge leverage spot in embracing that volatility for this week. And you can see some guys just haven't had success. Tony Finau's 3-3 in his 2 trips. Webb Simpson is 3-7-2. That's shocking to me. Like, why is Webb Simpson 3-7-2? He's one of the best players in the world. You could argue he's too nice. You could argue him and Tony Finau are not finding success because they're too nice, right? I mean, think about it. You can concede a putt to your opponent. Oh, that's 4 feet for par to have the hole. Maybe that's good. Or maybe the playing a partner is not as intimidated by a Tony Finau or a Webb Simpson. There's so much mental. I wish there was a magic formula for match play. There's not. Embrace it this week and see how far it can take you. All right, I hope that was very valuable. I hope that you guys geek out as much as I do over this. I think the edge is huge this week, and I'm hoping to see a lot of great screenshots a week from now. So yeah, best of luck. Let me know if you have any questions. I know that's a lot. Tweet me at RickRunGood. Leave a comment below. I'll talk to you guys soon.